Ladies and gentlemen, this is Donald Barco, and today I've been working on my sword. This is the first time, actually this is my second sword, but it's the experimental stage of me actually making swords out of metal. And yeah, I'm finding it relatively not easy, but yeah, it's manageable to be able to cut out of flat bar stock instead of actually forging. And here I've used mild steel because mild steel is today's equivalent of wrought iron, and it's much more closer in accuracy to the type of iron available to ancient Assyrians. So if you were to use mild steel, the carbon content is relatively low compared to high carbon steels that we have today, and it matches roughly the carbon content of ancient Assyrian swords. However, using the processes to process steel in the modern days, it's a much more refined and homogeneous metal than back in ancient times. And that is a science in itself. And I don't claim to be an expert, but at the same time, we are trying to make something of historical value. Now, this particular sword is based off Ashurbanipal's reliefs, King Ashurbanipal, the last great king of Assyria, and what we see here is one that's used primarily in his hunting reliefs. It's not finished yet. I'm still shaping. I've still got a lot of shaping to do for the sheath, and I have to glue the handles together and possibly pin them on. However, at this stage, yeah, it's okay. I've got some more flat stock here, and I'm hoping to get a few more designs happening based on my prototypes that I made out of either timber or resin, and we'll be transferring those sizes and those templates onto the flat bar stock, tracing it out and using those as my templates. And this particular sword is a king's cubit long. So if you were to take it out of the sheath or the scabbard, in this case, because it's a hard shell, what you'll notice is it's two hands for the for the handle in length, and four hands and 2 fingers for the actual blade length. And this particular Assyrian sword is a short sword that reminds me a lot of a gladius, a shorter version of the Roman gladius, and yeah, I think it would have functioned the same. It would have been a thrusting weapon primarily. However, you can use it to chop, and yeah, the blades have been beefed up quite considerably since King Ashur-nasirpal of Assyria's time, and yeah, they seem to be thin, whippy blades with a bit more length to them, whereas these ones are primarily for thrusting, and I'm assuming that they would have been going through the robust nature of the blade. Indicates to me that a lot more enemies that the ancient Assyrians encountered would have been better armed than in the times of Ashur-nasirpal, King Ashur-nasirpal. So yeah, I'm thinking they have to go through layers of armor as well. So that gives the point a lot more reinforcement, and the width of the blade makes it heftier for chopping, especially in the shoulder and neck joints on your enemy. And here you get a sense of what the blade looks like outside of the scabbard. So the scabbard is there, and this is the blade. And with this blade, you can see it's a relatively short sword. And yeah, the handle part is approximately 2 hands, and the rest of the blade is four hands and 2 fingers, and in total it gives you the length of a king's cubit, which is the same as the King Adad Nirari's sickle sword from from the Middle Assyrian period. And what will happen is these handles will get mounted on that part there. And I really like the fact that I can construct my blades with the handles intact instead of a tank system, so that if anything was to actually go wrong regarding the handle, we can still use the sword or remove those damaged handles, broken handle parts, and then mount new ones on instead. So yeah, it's coming along pretty good. And this is what I mean, this thickness here, it makes it a quite robust short sword. And the point, you can see it's a very sharp tip. And I think I could, if I wanted to, make it even more acute, to give it a much more sharper tip. But even that tip is amazingly sharp as well, very strong. And back in ancient Assyrian times, they would have had ribs, central ribs going down, going down the blade length, and that would help reinforce the blade of the sword in order for the sword to not bend in combat. And that's a residual effect, because don't forget, you had bronze workers that were trying to adapt to working with iron, and those techniques that they used, such as reinforcing, having a reinforcing rib down the center of the blade, is something that was carried over into ancient, from bronze working technology into iron working technologies. Whereas in later times, with the development of iron, and the carburizing methods, as the years went by, what happened was you start to see, instead of a raised rib, fullers being introduced to lighten the blade quite considerably, and lengthen the blade as well, which allowed for much greater reach and the use of the sword as a primary weapon. Whereas in ancient Assyrian times, a sword, or your dagger, a short sword or dagger, was usually your secondary weapon, and a weapon that was worn to symbolize your status within the ranking of the ancient Assyrian army, and within ancient Assyrian society in general. So thanks for watching, and we'll see. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Donald Barco, and I'd like to give you a look at what's coming up in the future. And here we have some first trials, experimentals of swords that I'm creating out of metal, steel, and this particular sword design is based off Adad Nirari's sickle sword, and it's much bigger. As you can see, the original sickle sword would have been 55 centimeters long, which would have been a king's cubit. However, here, because we're making it out of mild steel instead of bronze, we can beef it up. And this particular template that I've created has been scaled to 10 hands, 10 standard hands, which would fit in the length of this sword. and this will be the first ancient Assyrian sword created in a sickle shape that's this big. So I'm looking forward to seeing how progress goes with this particular sword. So we've got one more side to shape, and then we'll have all 4 edges done. And this will be a short sword of an light infantryman, ancient Assyrian light infantryman. This sword is based off a Babylonian king's sword, and it's got the name of the Babylonian king in here. So here I've wrote my name in this section. And this sword, the actual shape and the length and the style is very similar to what you see in ancient Assyrian reliefs regarding the light infantry, ancient Assyrian light infantrymen wear, and it's a perfect template for their outfits. This one, yeah, Sapa. So now I've roughed it out from the flat stock, and you can see this is a huge sword, 10 hands long. Huh? So I can imagine the Babylonian king and the Assyrian king. This is based off an Assyrian king's sword. This is based off a Babylonian king's sword. And it would have been like Crocodile Dundee. The Assyrian king would have said to the Babylonian king, "Hey, that's not a knife. This is a knife." Donald Barker here, wishing all my Assyrians a happy Assyrian New Year. Was it 6,770 years we've been celebrating Assyrian New Year. God bless the Assyrian nation for still being here after that amount of time. Now I'm giving you an update on just the progress of my Sapara or Sapa in Assyrian, and here we go. We can see I've roughed out the shape. I've put the grooves in, and we've still got a bit more to do here. The blade is nice and sharp, and I've still got this side to do. Now here what I'm using pretty much to rough it out of the stock is just a angle grinder. So all I've been doing is I marked the shape out with a template, cut it out with some cutting wheels, used the grinding wheel then to shape it to the final shape, and then started actually doing the shaping of the blade and the grooves. So yeah, it's coming along really well, but it just needs a bit of patience and a bit of care, because we're using hand files, we're using sandpaper, we're using angle grinders. That's about it, and some C-clamps just to hold everything in position. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Donald Barker here, showcasing a little bit more of my progress regarding my Sapara, ancient Assyrian sickle sword. And as you can see, the shape on both sides has been done. Just some sanding to get some nice clean surfaces with no big deep scratches in the blade. And it's coming along really well. I'm loving the shape, and I really enjoy the way it feels in the hand too. In this section here, we've still got design to do, and then the writing will start from about where the blade begins, and then all the way to the tip. And as you can see here, the spine of the sword, and the other side is pretty much the same thing. Ladies and gentlemen, you can start to see the engraving in cuneiform of the ancient Assyrian language upon my sword. The technique that I used to get that imprint onto here is by making little holes, piercing it, and then when you put the felt tip over it, it leaves a mark on the metal, and that can then be easily traced over to get your proper lines. Let's see if I can make out some words. Now, palace of, I think Iqal, that first part is Iqal. I can see, here we go, that's Sharu. I think universe. Kishati, that's Kishati, Sharu Kishati. What else do you have here? Here I can start to see Matat Ashur. So that's a determinative. The three wedges on a diagonal signify land. So that's land of Ashur. An. I think very soon we'll get to the next batch. Here we go. Here's King again. Sharu, and that must be the name of his grandfather. So where's the other Sharu? Sharu here again. Sharu, Mat, Anshar. So he goes into the name of his father here. Let's see, and here too. The name of his grandfather, and then you see Assyria again. So there's Assyria, and then you see Assyria again here. Land of Assyria. Oh. Mat Ashur. Yeah, well, that metal chewed up quite a few bits, eh? And it was very tedious work, but I think the effort was well worth it. Here you can see. Let's see if it catches the light nicely. There we go. So technically, now I'm holding the property of King Adad Nirari of ancient Assyria, king of the universe. Ancient Assyrian sickle sword, known in ancient Assyrian as a sapara or sapa.